Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Mike Lenz VO podcast. My name is Mike Lenz. I'm an entrepreneur and a full-time professional voice actor and audiobook narrator. My goal is to share with you stories from some of the most amazing and inspiring people from all areas of the voiceover industry to help you achieve your dream of becoming a professional voice actor. So please leave me a review over on iTunes and join us over on the web at mikelenzvopodcast.com to be notified of each episode when it comes out. Now, get ready to be inspired. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Mike Lenz VO podcast. Now, before we jump into the show, I want to share some great discounts from Voice 123 and the LinkedIn Edge. In the show notes, I'll have a link for a 15% discount on a new Voice 123 membership at the $395 level and up. Now, I've had tremendous success on the Voice 123 casting platform, and I have an affiliate partnership with them to provide this amazing discount to my podcast listeners. So check the show notes for the special discount link. And I've said so many times how important social media marketing is to finding success in the VO industry. That's why I also have an affiliate partnership with my good friend Tracy Lindley to provide a $50 discount on her LinkedIn Edge course. I've been following Tracy's LinkedIn plan for years, and it has helped me connect with clients who hire me. It's a great course, so take advantage of this discount by clicking on the link in the show notes that will take you to an ordering page with the $50 discount already applied to the price. So both of these discounts can be found in the show notes, so check them out. All right, so on today's episode, my guest is Cris Dukehart. Cris is a graduate of Johns Hopkins University. She has recorded over 300 audiobooks across multiple genres, an Audie nominee and an Earphones award winner. Cris now spends most of her free time in her mountaintop house in the Caribbean, and I can't wait to talk about that. So, Cris, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It is so nice to finally be able to connect and have a conversation. I know we follow each other on social media, and I've been following your posts for quite some time now, but it's lovely for us to get a chance to actually get together and talk. So I'm glad you're here. So let's start by, if you would, just sharing your journey. How did you come upon the world of voiceovers, and in particular, your genre that you specialize in, which is audiobook narration? How did that happen in your life?
I grew up a voracious reader, and my best friend's mom was a professional storyteller. She told the most amazing folk tales, and she was the director of the Children's Museum in Maryland for a time, which was in this castle, like the Cloisters Museum. It was, or the Cloisters Mansion. It was it was an insane childhood growing up visiting a castle. Like,
Oh, yeah, I imagine.
Right. So I grew up with that. I can remember my first independent audiobook. My mom had given me these cassette tapes of Alice in Wonderland, and they were color coded in pastel colors, and I was not a good sleeper. So that was her, here are a pair of headphones, and here is a cassette player, and here is what you will do when you wake up at 2 a.m. So I grew up listening to audiobooks. And so then when my kids came into the picture, we listened to audiobooks, and I read aloud to them because it was a way for me to be part of their lives. And because they liked to read books that I didn't necessarily feel they were 100% ready to explore, and that way, if it was something that they had questions about, or I could see that they were afraid, I could stop and talk them through it or whatever. But it became a thing. So my grown kids would wait for books to come out in a series that we were reading. And even at 18, my oldest, they would wait for all of us to be together to read these books. And when my youngest was 10 and didn't really need me around anymore. I mean, I would read to their schools when they were in elementary school and middle school, but when my youngest was 10, and I don't know, I was kind of at a loss, and I said to my then husband at the time, I said, I think I'm going to go back to medical school and I'm going to get my MD. And he was like, oh, don't do that. Please, try audiobooks. I think you should be a narrator. And I was like, no, I want a real job. I want a job I can tell people about. And he was like, but just try it. If you hate it, in a year, I will reimburse you whatever you've spent.
Not a
And
bad deal.
right. And I was like, well, it's a year, and it was going to take a year for me to re-up my science courses. I did go to Johns Hopkins, and they have a program where you can re-up your science courses and then reapply to medical school or whatever.
Hmm.
And so my background was in academics. I was forensic anthropology was my major. Um, so I did. I started out researching because that's what you do when you're an academic. You research. So I researched, and I found a number of voiceovers who had all studied with the same person, and all of those voiceovers had a great presentation online, and they all seemed really talented. They had studied with a woman named Nancy Wolfson, and I reached out to her, and she did phone, studying, and so I took her program, which was commercial voiceover, and I just did what I was told. I just did what she said, and I got jobs, and I got a job that paid for all my equipment at the time and all of my training. And then I said to her, hey, my real passion is audiobooks. And she was like, oh, well, let me tell you about Pat Fraley and Scott Brick. They do this program here in LA. And so I went and I trained with Pat Fraley and Scott Brick for a weekend, and a bunch of amazing people that some of them I'm still friends with now, and are still in the industry. And I just did what they said.
Yeah.
I just did what I was told. And then I got work. And that was 2010. So 14 years later. And it would be 14 years in March. So 14 years later, I am a full-time working narrator, and I love my job. It's allowed me amazing opportunities. It gave me the ability to be a single mom and also a provider. For the most part, I worked out of my home studio, but occasionally I would fly into, LA or New York or Michigan. And often I took my daughter. And so she had this amazing opportunity to be part of the industry, and they were so welcoming to her and lovely. Maybe an unrealistic, idea. We stayed in the Dion recording estate once, and she was like, "Mom, why don't we live in LA? Look how marvelous this is."
Yeah.
And Deb and Bob had created this space there that was just a fairy tale. So it gave me and my youngest this opportunity to sort of live a great life. And it gave me the flexibility to, as you mentioned, to move to a mountaintop in the Caribbean and support my daughter in that and still be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that pharmacy was an odd background to have for audiobook narration, but I think you
Right?
might have me beat.
Forensic anthropology. Yeah, I know.
Forensic anthropology might take the cake.
Yeah.
And we were talking before we recorded how important it's important for all of us to have this background. And I think a lot of
Right.
people who are aspiring audiobook narrators who maybe might not have a literary background or a creative arts background think,
Right.
well, how can I do this? Well, you're listening to two people that were in the science field,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and are audiobook narrators now full time. So it
Right.
doesn't matter what your background is. It just matters whether, I've always said in terms of VO that having a good voice is like the third most important thing. I think
Right.
the most important thing is can you read copy
Mm-hmm.
and make it sound like you're not reading copy, and can you take
Right.
direction, and only the third one is if you have a good voice, because if you can't do the
Right.
first two, then having a good voice doesn't matter. So
Absolutely. I agree.
it doesn't necessarily matter what your background is. It's
Right.
are you able to do what you did, which is take classes, get coached, and do what they tell you to do, and
Right.
apply the things that you learned into making yourself a better artist and being
Right.
better at what you do, which is exactly what you did. I mean, I trained with Sean Pratt. I know you know Sean,
I
and
do.
going through his process was so invaluable to me and
Right.
some other commercial coaches that I've worked with over the years. Um, one of the things I always tell people is get coaching, get coaching, get coaching. What should I do?
Right.
What should I do? Get coaching.
Get coaching, get coaching. Right. Talk to the people who know.
Yes, who are further along in their careers than you,
Right.
and who are willing to provide these services to you. Then take advantage of those. It's going to take some resources, of course, but
Right.
that's how you're going to be able to be competitive in this market. So let's dial back just a little bit to
Sure.
when you first you went through the process and you got training and
Hmm.
you realized this is really something that I think I can do,
Hmm.
and you had that initial success. What was that like? Um, what was the process like for you to get into the actual field of narrating audiobooks? I know a lot of people go through the ACX route. That's the route that I went through in the
Hmm.
beginning. I think pretty much everybody kind of goes through that path, at least at some point. And then as you begin to establish yourself, you begin to make contacts within the industry. And now I know both of us are able to work with major publishers and producers.
Hmm.
But that process is not easy, is it? And what was that process like for you? Were there some obstacles that you encountered that you had to get over in the beginning? Was it, nope, I just made a few inquiries and I just started getting books? Like, how did it work for you?
Well, I did go commercial first. And my first setup was sort of a preliminary, like, do I like this? I used a USB microphone. I used a free Audacity, software. I recorded in um, a blanket booth that I made out of a heavy blanket that my grandmother had made. I felt like that might give me good luck. She herself had done a radio program back in like the 60s, early 60s. And I just felt like it maybe gave me, a little added something. Um, when I auditioned or when I took the demo that I made with Pat Fraley and Scott Brick, one of the things that they suggested and one of the benefits to training with people is they have those connections and they have those networks. And in the back of their course book, they had a list of people that you could contact. Um, and so I did. I took that demo that I had made and I contacted some of those people on the list. And Mike Charzik, who was who was with Audible, um, Hillary Eustace is with Tantor. I had reached out to them and I just said, hey, I'm new. Um, I'm looking to record. Here's, I'd like to send you my demo. Um, Both of them said, sure, send it. I did. And I think with Mike Charzik was maybe the first one who responded and asked for a sample of my current booth. And so I sent it and he was like, okay, so here's what you need. And he
Yep.
gave me a whole list of, you need a good microphone. He suggested a few. You need a booth. You're not going to be able to record wherever you are. It sounds like you're in a blanket. I was like,
Maybe.
I'm in a blanket, but it's a good luck blanket.
Yes.
Um, and he said, I would suggest Pro Tools. And so for me, the first hurdle was that learning curve,
Hmm.
right? So you need a booth, but you can't just have a booth. You have to have a soundproof booth or a sound treated booth because sound bounces around. I had no idea. I mean, my background was in science, but not in audio science. So it was like, oh, okay, so sound waves bounce and I need to pad the corners and my first booth was a tiny little square and I need to, pad the stand that I'm reading off of because my voice is reflecting off of it. Um, Pro Tools was a huge learning curve. Here, you
Oh
need
yeah.
to, do that. And honestly, what what helped is that so many, well, the APA at that time had, and maybe they still do, had a link where you could go on, and I can't remember if it was Stefan or Nick. Somebody had put up a step-by-step guide on how to set up Pro Tools for audiobook recording. And that's what I did. And for a long time, that's all I knew was exactly what I like please don't change my settings. I don't know anything.
Right.
Um, and over the course of time, I picked up some new things and I took a couple of, Pro Tools courses to figure out what I was even doing. Um, but that was the first huge hurdle was creating an environment that was both what was necessary to record for larger publishers and a space where I could feel creative and comfortable and like it was my own little I don't know. When I read, I see the book play out like a movie in my brain. And one of the things I say a lot when people say, don't you get characters confused? I'm like, not often, because it's playing like a movie in my brain. And I feel like my job is just to try to make that movie come out of my mouth.
Right.
But in order to do that, you have to have a space where you feel comfortable. So that was my first hurdle, was creating a space that was both what was necessary professionally and creatively.
I remember doing the first 5 audiobooks that I did were in the space that I'm in now, but it was not treated at all,
Right.
except our daughter had a 3-sided poster board that I duct taped to the wall, and I got Walmart foam and put it on the inside
Right.
and put my microphone, my USB microphone in front of it.
Mhm.
And I managed to get the first 5 done, but I don't recommend anybody listening to the first 5 books that I narrated.
But well
Um,
done you for getting them done.
but I did manage to get them done, but it definitely was a process to get to the
Right.
point where you get to a space that you feel allows you to, as you just said, to be able to perform
Right.
and have that comfort when you're not having to worry about the tech stuff anymore, because that's just it's something that we all have to worry about as voice actors and audiobook narrators, but getting that dialed in is a hurdle. But once we get it dialed in, then
Absolutely.
it frees us up to be able to do that.
Right.
I give you a lot of credit for doing Pro Tools. I used Pro Tools in the beginning, but I switched over. I used Audacity for a while, but I now use Adobe Audition. But Pro Tools
Gotcha.
is wonderful, but it's like it's so overkill for what we do,
It
and
is.
it's
It
so
really is.
technical. But so I give you a lot of credit for sticking with it, because it's like, wow, that was
Right.
really that was a huge hurdle for me in the beginning with Pro Tools, that I so much of a
For
hurdle
sure.
that I left it behind and said I'm gonna.
It was I cried in front of I was just like, blah. But and we talk about, I talked a little bit about the APA having that link to um that was the other thing, was like you were talking about connections. ACX wasn't in existence when I started. I was part of the beta program that tested out ACX.
Wow.
Um, and like that was before it went really live. And the APA was the connection then, right? So I did have a couple of books with Audible um, and with Tantor when I first attended um, uh, the first APAC,
APAC, yeah.
which is Audio Publishers Convention, and that was such a huge like stepping stool over a hurdle, right? Because you go to this event where everyone that you need to meet, from voiceovers to producers to casting folks, they're all there. And then it was just a matter of being brave, which is often a hurdle for me. But
Yeah.
you put on your big girl pants, your big boy pants, and you jump in there.
And it's so everybody knows, APA is the Audiobook Publishers Association, and
Right.
APAC
I'm
is the
sorry. Yeah.
Audiobook Publishers Association Conference.
Right.
And if you want to be involved in the audiobook world, it does make sense from my perspective to become a member of the APA.
Right.
I know that they are the Publishers Association, and people sometimes get a little, you know,
Mm,
upset with that they don't really represent us. And there is a group that does represent the
absolutely.
Professional Audiobook Narrators Association, which is PANA.
Which
Did I
I'm
get that
also a
right?
member of, but
Yes,
that was not available at that time. That came
correct.
after. And
Relatively recently, right?
right, what an amazing group of folks.
Yeah.
That one is.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it makes sense. But the Audiobook Publishers Association, even to this day, is a wonderful resource because
Hmm.
not only because of what Cris just mentioned in terms of the convention, which I had a very similar experience in terms of when I attended my very first convention and had to put on my big boy pants and had to go and meet a lot of people that I didn't know. But
Right.
I
Be
did
brave.
meet, I had to be brave and really did. That's where I did meet my first casting director from Tantor. And that's where I made that connection. And that's where I got my first book, which allowed me to then join the SAG-AFTRA union, which then allowed me to, and
Exactly.
I've continued to work with recorded books now, which has multiple producers under them.
Hmm.
Um, for the last 5 years, I've been working with them consistently because I went to that conference and
Right.
because
Exactly.
I spoke to that casting director. So
Right.
we're not just talking in esoteric terms. This is real
Right.
stuff. These are
Right.
the real people who will make a decision about whether or not they're going to hire you. You've got to bring the
Right.
talent. You've got to be able to do all the things that Cris talked about, which is have your space professionally, the tech stuff really locked in. But beyond that, it's about making connections. And I've always said that the entire
Absolutely.
industry is about making connections. But in
Right.
the audiobook world, that's even more important, I think, to make the connections with those people within the industry
Right.
that can hire you.
Well, and you talked about bringing our backgrounds.
Sure.
And honestly, your background is what colors you, right? So
Yes.
you can come in with your black and white self like every other narrator that comes in there and you're reading a black and white page. But your background is coloring how you present that. So you never know who you're going to meet. I was sitting um after the opening speech at one of the APACs, and I was sitting there and sort of gathering myself because lots of people and
Sure.
when you work in a booth, a small padded room for a living, being around lots of people can be overwhelming. And I was just sitting there gathering my mantle around me, and and a young woman came up and sat next to me and introduced herself just by name. And we chatted for a little bit, and she asked about, what I did and who I was, and, oh, I have a daughter, and, I'm newly divorced, and all of these. What it was life, you're just
Hmm.
chatting life. You're sharing yourself. Um, I have an academic background. I'm getting acting training now, you know, and she turned out to be a casting producer for Harper Collins, and about a month after APAC, I got an email. We exchanged cards or whatever, and I got an email, and I was cast in this amazing story by Matthew Quick, which was an author of he's the author of Silver Linings Playbook, which I had loved the movie, and I was like, oh my gosh. And the character was me. She was so close to me, and it was like, wow.
Yeah.
And it's not about putting on a face, right? You're coloring coloring your read with a genuine self by bringing your background and your genuine self. They want to hear you, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I mean, Dave Walsh always says he's a voiceover commercial coach, and he always says your voice will rat you out every time. And what they're looking for is authenticity. It will. And
Absolutely,
they want
absolutely.
they want authenticity. So
Hmm.
if you get a script and it says the celebrity reference John Hamm,
Right,
they don't want you to pretend to be John Hamm. That's not what they're asking you to do. They want you to
right,
still be Mike, still be Cris.
right,
They're using that as a reference for perhaps how you
right.
do your delivery, how you think about the character. But if you try to bring John Hamm to the audition, you're not going to get it.
They
You
would
got to
have
bring.
asked John Hamm.
They would have asked John Hamm, right? They want
Right,
you.
exactly.
And the producers are listening for that, and they will. If they don't hear authenticity within the first 3 seconds, they move on. So
Right,
it's so important to bring your background and be willing to talk about your background to complete strangers. And I'm not
absolutely.
saying to just be an open book and just throw out all this stuff to people that you just met. We're not saying that because that's a
Right,
whole different story. But
right.
not being afraid, as Brene Brown says, not being afraid to be vulnerable, not being afraid to
Absolutely.
share some things about yourself that really color who you are as an
Absolutely.
individual, because you never know how that's going to work. I remember when I met this casting director, I'd actually forgotten that I'd sent her a cold email probably 2 weeks before.
Mhm.
And so she saw my tag and it said Saratoga Springs. And you and I talked about before, and I've said this on the podcast before, that I had served in politics and I had been mayor of Saratoga Springs. And
Right.
she said, "Oh, Saratoga Springs." She goes, "I grew up in Canton, which is near
Yeah.
there." And
Mhm.
I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it's a great city." I said, "I used to be mayor." She goes, "You used to be mayor of Saratoga Springs?" And
I
so,
did.
and so for me, it was, I shared that, but I also knew in the back of my head that might be some way that she would remember me, that would distinguish me from other
Oh, for
people. And she
sure.
said, "We do a lot of the, what kind of genre do you like to work in?" And I told her, and she said, "We do a lot of that. Here's my card. Email me in 2 weeks because let me dig out from APAC, but
From
email me in
APAC,
two
right.
weeks." And
Mhm.
when I emailed her in exactly 2 weeks, I did say, "Hey, it's Mike." I said, "I'm the guy that was the mayor from Saratoga." And so it would be easy for her to remember me because you meet hundreds of people at these conferences.
Oh, yeah,
And
right.
within a week of me emailing her, she sent me my first book with them. So
Fabulous. That's
that's,
great.
another example of just what you were saying is not being afraid to share some things about you that
Right.
that make you who you are, not
Mhm.
in an ulterior motive way. You still have to be authentic.
Right.
They
No,
need to
I
be
didn't even
authentic
know this gal
connections.
was a casting agent. I was like,
We were just talking.
right. It was just, it was women talking together, and then it was like, oh, when she handed me her card and I was like, oh, and actually I thought I'd blown it, right? Because I'd been so personal and I was like, oof.
Right. Did I
But
divulge too much? Right. Yeah.
right,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly, because I didn't know who she was at the
Right.
time. And actually we're good friends now. So
That's
I
absolutely
mean,
wonderful. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it
So
is
yeah.
about being authentic. It's about making authentic connections. I really can't stress
Right.
that enough.
Bringing
Um,
yourself,
yep.
like
Don't
bringing
pretend.
yourself in. Right.
Just be you. Just be you.
Right.
So that's really good advice. And I think a lot of people that are getting started in the audiobook industry they're kind of looking for those concrete, tangible things that they can do. So, get coaching, join
Right.
organizations like the APA, as well as the Professional Narrators Association.
Right.
And then utilize those because they have speed dating events where you can meet
Right.
producers. They have meetups. They have listings of people that work within the industry. You can find out people that you need to connect with who are
Right.
working for some of these publishers. So take advantage of those things.
And keep taking advantage of it. I mean, you're talking about hurdles and I've had more hurdles. I was a full-time working narrator, but I just felt like I didn't have the acting training that I needed. And I studied with Paul Rubin. I drove into New York City,
Hmm.
every Wednesday for a while. And man, did I struggle. I really struggled hard with him. And one of the things he had said was, have you listened to your work? And I was like, no, it kind of makes my teeth hurt. When you listen to yourself, it's a little weird. And he was like, imagine how I feel. And I was like,
Hmm.
oof, but he was so right.
Yeah.
So then going back and listening to my work and going, oh, now, okay, that's listener fatigue. And maybe I should work a little toward this or work a little toward that. And when I went back and worked with Paul as a director, he was like, whoa, whatever you did is amazing. Like, wow, I'm so proud of you. Um, and that came from struggling through that training. Um, and then now, I mean, it's 14 years that I've been in the industry and the industry is changing and there's a big push toward, you know, internet presence and people knowing who's reading to them. And um, it's that personal thing, right? That you were saying, bring yourself, bring your authenticity, bring your vulnerability. And I was like, how do you do that in this shifting world? Um, so I looked for more training. Julie Wilson, who is part of, Random House,
Yep.
um, does something called Articulate Coach, and she's incredible.
Mm.
And she absolutely was like, bring your authentic, vulnerable self. That's who we want.
Yep.
Um, really, continue that train when you feel like you're butting your head up against something, or when you feel like there's like a rock in the stream of your life, and you're like, I just can't get around it. There are people who know how to help you.
Hmm.
It's one of the wonderful things I think about this industry is there are people and they're absolutely open to helping you. So reach out. I mean, continuing education is a thing everywhere, here too.
Oh,
So
yeah. I mean, I am a huge advocate for that, to continue to train, continue to coach. Think about
absolutely.
athletes, right? Think about, Serena Williams and Tiger Woods and
Absolutely. They
they're
don't
the best
stop
in the
because they're
world. They're
good.
coaching. They have coaches though, right? I mean,
Right.
even at the highest
Exactly.
level. So the idea
Exactly.
that, oh, I've done all my coaching, now I'm, I'm narrating full time.
Right.
I don't have
No.
to coach anymore. Of course you do.
Yeah. Well, and it can be an isolating job too. You're
Oh yeah.
My daughter once told her principal when asked what her mother did, she talks to herself in a padded room all day. She's not wrong.
No,
Like that's what you do, and it can be an isolating thing. And to reach out and find people there to say, "Hey, have you tried this?" or "Hey, look at it this way," or even just to encourage you to bring your authentic, vulnerable self. There's something to be said for being handheld for just a moment, you know?
no question about
Um,
it.
yeah,
And it's
just to
it's
feel like
it's
you
so
have
important.
someone else in the booth with you.
Yep, exactly. Somebody helping you. And it's always hard for us to see ourselves objectively
Right,
because we're the
right,
ones performing. We're the ones doing it day in and day out. And I
right.
remember getting I got a really nice review on Audiophile magazine, which is another place that audiobook narrators should most likely subscribe to.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
Audiophile magazine is wonderful, and
Yeah.
they will do reviews if you submit your book. You do reviews. So I've gotten a number of reviews and
Hmm.
won an Earphones award, yay! And
Congratulations. Isn't
yay!
that exciting when
It is
you're like, oh
exciting.
my gosh,
Your
yay.
little certificate in the mail. It's very nice.
Yeah.
But I had a very nice review for one of the books that I did, and then there was there was another review. I don't know if it was on a podcast or something, where the person who was reviewing it said it was a good book, it was a good read, but it wasn't great. And he said something that I'll never forget. He goes, "Well, he's not one of the golden voices." So it didn't make me not want to listen to the book, but it was okay. And I remember being so upset, right?
Right.
I was so upset.
Oh, yeah.
And but then I was so upset that I literally went and bought the book on Audible and listened to it.
Hmm.
And when I got done listening to it, as even before that, I was like, he's right.
I have room for improvement.
He was right. I could be mad about it, but he was
Right.
right. He listens to books all the time.
Right.
And he was right. And I was like, you got to step up your game. You can't mail it in. You
Right.
got to bring it every single time. And that was a very humbling experience for me well into my career.
Yeah,
Um,
for
and
sure.
and I realized then that, look, the learning never, ever, ever stops. So valuable
Right.
advice. Never stop
Right.
learning. So,
For sure.
all right, let's segue into this um, really life-changing moment for you. You lived
Hmm.
in the United States,
I did
and
on the East
you
Coast.
yes,
Hmm.
yes, and you made a decision at some point in
I
your
did.
life to move to Puerto Rico. So I'm going to let you fill in the
I
blanks.
did.
How'd that
I
happen?
did. My daughter, um, who uh, is a surfer, graduated high school early, gung ho. I'm gonna go take on the world. I was like, why don't you take a break? Like you pushed so hard. No, I have a full scholarship. I'm going. And she went and she gloriously bombed that first semester. Um, I didn't even know who she was. It was not my finest motherhood moment for certain. When she called me on the phone, she was at her dad's house, which was 12 minutes from my little cottage at the time, and said, "Mom, I got a 1.2 GPA."
Oof.
And I was like, "Oh." Um, and I tried to be supportive, and I said, "Well, how do you feel about that?" And she said, "Pretty darn proud." And I was like, "Oh, man." And
Yikes.
I just saw red. She said, "You should have seen how bad it was before I started going to class." And I
Hmm.
was like, "Who are you?" Like, I drove over to her father's house and I knocked on the door, knock, 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 knock. And he came to the door, and they have a bit of they butt heads a bit. It's normally not me that is the one knocking on the door like that. And he was like, "Hi." I was like, "Where is she?" And he said, I think, and she called out, "Don't let her in. She's really
Oh my
mad."
gosh.
Um, And he said, I think she's under the table. This is a child who had never even been spanked. And I just went in and I looked under the table and just stared at her and waited for her to crawl out.
Oh my gosh.
It was not my finest moment. And I don't even remember the things I said. She just kept saying, I just need to get to the coast. I'm landbound. I can't be landbound. And her dad was like, I'm going to take her down to Florida for winter break. I was like, no, she's been on vacation all semester. She had run up, a bill on my credit card. And I was like, what is this even? You have a meal card. She was like, well, yeah, but I got tired of those meals. And I was like, but what? It's hot Cheetos, Mom. My friends like hot Cheetos. And I was like, I just couldn't even. So he took
Exasperated.
her,
Yeah.
right. I was so frustrated. He took her down to Florida. She surfed for a bit. They came back. She and I had a conversation. It gave me the time to sort of calm down. We had a conversation where I just said, you're on scholarship. And when you agreed to take that money, it's like taking a job.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do your job, what happens? And she said, well, you get fired. But they can't fire me. It's school. And I was like, well, here is your probation letter saying that if you don't get your GPA up to the GPA that you agreed to keep when you took that money, that you're going to lose your scholarship. And she was like, oh, well, I'll just bring it up. And I was like, well, you can't. Your GPA is so low that even with a 4.0, you're not going to reach the GPA you need. And she was like, well, what do I do? I was like, you eat crow, you petition, you put yourself into this, you show them that you're capable, and then you go and you ask for them to forgive you. You're not the only child who has gone to college and lost their mind for a semester or two.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you do. If what you're doing isn't working for you, do something else. And she took that information and she went back to school. And about a week or two later, she called me and she said, here are my grades. Then she had A's straight through. She said, I want to go on spring break somewhere warm where I can surf. It's really hard for me here. She was in the mountains. And I want to go with you. I was like, you want to go on spring break with your mother? Come on. She was like, Mom, if what I'm doing is not working, and it isn't, I need to do something different. So my plan initially was to take her to California because I can work there and she could surf, but it was a really cold spring. And then I had this moment of like, what if I take her somewhere where I'm spending the same amount of money that she ran up on my credit card? And then I can have this amazing moment where I say, you get to choose. Like, you can choose hot Cheetos and illegal booze, or you can choose adventure. And I'm going to love you no matter what you choose, but please choose adventure. Like I would have that moment, but where do you take a kid for that amount of money for a week or 10 days is what it was. And I started researching, and there was a place called Rincon, Puerto Rico, which is on the west coast of Puerto Rico, and it is the surf capital of the Caribbean. So I texted her, what do you think of Rincon, Puerto Rico? Oh my gosh, Mom, that's the surf capital of the Caribbean. Everybody's there right now in the winter. That's so amazing. I can't believe it. That would be great. So we did. And we had this amazing time, and I did it all with the same budget that she had run up. And I had that moment where I could say to her, you get to choose, and I'm going to love you either way. And then she said, what about you, Mom? You always say you have this job, right? No, that's not part of my moment.
Yes.
You always say you have this job where you can go and do anything. You can go anywhere as long as you can record there. But you are in South Central Pennsylvania in the same cottage that I grew up in. Like, why are you still there? And that put one bug in, right? But then as we were leaving, she started to cry and she said, I don't want to go. I want to stay here. And I was like, well, that's the sign of a good vacation. She's like, no, Mom, I want to take a gap year and I want to learn how to shape surfboards here in Rincon. And I was like, shape surfboards? I had no idea. And she takes out this full notebook of surfboard drawings, and not just drawings of like, here's my surfboard, but like rail measurements and concaves. And she was an engineering major at the time. She had all of these measurements and boards and ideas, and I had no idea that this was part of her heartstream. I had no clue.
Mm.
And she said, you encouraged me before to take a gap year. I said, no. Eventually, I'll figure out that you know what you're talking about when you say it. I want to come back. And what I heard at the time was, I want to go back to Puerto Rico and get pregnant and live on the beach and carve tiki masks out of coconut shells. And don't you think that's a great plan, Mom? And I was like, no. But I said, okay, well, 1, I'm not telling your dad. That's your job. 2, you have to do it through the college. You're not just dropping out. You have to do it through the college.
Mm-hmm.
And 3, you're not going alone. I can't send, she graduated early, right? She was only 18. Sure. I can't send my 18-year-old daughter to live alone in Puerto Rico.
No.
I can't do it. And I do have this amazing job that, as long as certain qualifications are met, you have to have a space where you can put a booth. You have to have reliable internet, reliable electric, which Puerto Rico is not known for. But if you live on a mountain where you can see the internet towers and you have a whole house generator.
Got a pretty good shot. Yeah.
Exactly. So I found that space. I came back 2 months later. I found that space that I thought might work. I didn't know for sure, but I thought it would work. I let all of my publishers know that I was doing this crazy thing, and just if they could work with me while I made that transition. I found a studio in Rincon with a gentleman, Studio Ensenada, with a gentleman named John Knowles, who was a surfer, but also recorded big time music in New York and New Jersey. And he had this studio in the hills of Rincon. And I recorded with him for, I don't know, 3 or 4 books before I was able to get my own studio up. And she did what she said, my daughter. She came, she worked with an older gentleman, Mitch Benton, amazing surfboard shaper, who taught her, made her sit on a chair and watch him for long enough. And then by the end of that adventure for her, she had created this surfboard that she had drawn. It had the flora and fauna from outside of our mountain house, from outside of her favorite break, and from outside of the shop where she was learning, in the epoxy of the board. And it was beautiful. She still surfs the board. She was here in around Thanksgiving for her birthday, and she was surfing that board. She did what she said she was going to do, and then COVID hit. COVID hit, and she petitioned the school for her tuition, or for her scholarship back. They had a program that allowed her the opportunity to prove herself. Like, they would pay 90% for an A, 80% for a B, that kind of thing. She proved herself. And in addition, she went to school online, because everybody did.
Sure.
During COVID. I bought the house that I had been renting because I was able to record there, and because she was here doing her thing and also going to school, and nobody knew what was happening after COVID.
So up to that point, you had been renting it for a period
right.
of time.
Because I didn't know.
Right. You didn't know if you were going back. Right.
Right.
It was the gap year. Yeah.
It was just a gap year. And I didn't know if I would even be able to record. There was a potential that I would have to take a break from work to support my daughter in this dream, which was both, as a parent, right? You want to go, no, stay on the path. And then also, like, how brave is that? To go off and do something that nobody would have said, oh yes, this kid who graduated early and is an engineering major is going to go learn how to shape surfboards. Like, how brave. Yeah. So I applauded her bravery, but I was afraid for her too. And I wanted to give her that safe space to jump off of. And I have this job that allows me the freedom, right, that I never utilized or took advantage of. And
So your daughter brought you to Puerto Rico,
She did.
but at
And then
some
she
point,
left.
right, but at some point you fell in love with it, right? At some point you're like, this
Right.
is kind of nice.
And then she left. She went back. She graduated with a degree in neurobiology and psychology. She does somatic surf therapy and has a real estate license. And um, yeah, so she
So
did what
she
she
was there
said.
with
And
you
then
for what, a couple of years at least, right?
for 2 years,
Yeah.
she was here full time. And then she went back to school on campus for her senior year and came here whenever she had a chance. Um, And then she went off and was grown up for a year, now 2 years, doing responsible grown up stuff and finding ways to incorporate, which she learned here. She said to me, when she came here, she was willing to be a nomad. And lots of surfers are, they follow the waves.
Sure.
Um, but she met people who were doctors and surgeons and veterinarians and engineers who were out there doing dawn patrol, which is the morning surf. It's this amazing time when like diamonds glitter on the water and, this handful of people that are willing to wake up at dawn and get out there are out there. And she met these people who were living productive, amazing lives and also surfing.
Mm-hmm.
So she created this world for herself that, she is one of the coolest individuals, seriously. Like, it's awesome to love your children, but to really like your kids and to
admire
be
them.
like,
Yeah.
right. I'm so in awe of her. I don't know how she sprang from my loins, but I am in awe of her. She
Well,
is genuinely one of the coolest people I've ever met.
yeah, but you're pretty cool too. I mean, you're the cool mom
Thanks.
that said, like, I'm going with you on this gap year. Now, there's a lot of other moms that would be like, okay, no, it's not happening.
Right.
So give yourself some credit there because you were
Well,
willing to take that leap with her. You did it because you wanted her to be safe and you wanted to be there as her
I
mom to
did.
protect her. But at the same time, you had to make that decision yourself to literally uproot your life and your
Hmm.
career
Yeah.
potentially
Yeah.
to take the risk that the publishers were going to work with you and were going to be willing to hang in there with you
Right.
into a world that was completely unknown to you other than a week visit. So
Right.
that, that takes a lot of guts and you and I have talked about this, and I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast, but that's my initial contact with you was hearing about your story about Puerto Rico, and it was just amazing to me because one of the things that I've always talked about when I was running my brick and mortar was I was always trapped there, and it
Right.
was so confining to me, and I wasn't allowing my creativity to come to the fore, so that when I left that world and all of a sudden I could narrate and I had control of my day, it was
Right.
very, very strange to me and hard for me to adjust to that. And
And there
my
is
wife
an
and I,
adjustment period for sure.
oh,
For sure.
absolutely. And we've
Yeah.
always talked about, I've had those words have come out of my mouth so many times that you have said, like, I can go anywhere as long as I have a place to record. And,
Right.
and even though we have that ability, not all of us will do it. You did it. So
I did.
that's what drew me to you. And I was like, wow, that's a great story. So you made a decision, which had to be a very big decision you're renting this place. Then you're
Mhm.
like, I'm going to buy it. So you bought a house
I did. Yeah,
in Puerto Rico, on the island of Puerto
I
Rico.
did.
So
On a mountain.
and was that an easy decision at that point, or was it still something you had to really struggle with? Big commitment to buy a
It
property.
it was. And my mountain house is a project. I mean, it's not an easy house. It was built in the 50s by
Hmm.
an American professor at the university here. And so it's unique and it has a lot of projects. And I love DIY. It's another way that I express my creativity is by creating spaces that are welcoming and feel like you can be creative and safe there. So it gave me a lot of adventures in that way, like creating a space for her first, and then now for myself. And it's a project. It's an always project. That's something people that live in Puerto Rico will tell you. owning a house here is a constant project. It's not like in the States where you can do something and it's done for 20 years. For
Yeah.
the most part, that doesn't happen here. The islands, when I first moved here, um, the mother of the folks who owned the property, her name was Nelsie, and she is this powerful whirlwind of a woman who is about 5 feet tall. And she bustled in and she said, "Do you have someone to cut your jungle?" And I was like, maybe this is an issue with translation, um, my jungle. And the lawyer who was there helping to sign stuff said she means the yard outside. And I said, "Oh, well, I just got here. I'll figure it out." And Nelsie said, and this is something that is so, so powerful. And honestly, I feel like this is Puerto Rico, right? She said, "Do it soon, because if you don't, the island will take back her own."
Mm.
And she was not wrong. The jungle will encroach and it will swallow houses and it will swallow cars and roads. The island is always trying to take back her own.
Mm.
Living here is beautiful. It's Technicolor beautiful. Like, one of the things that I say is, like, when you have beauty that is so sharp, people will say, "Oh, that's photoshopped." It's not. The blue here, they call it Windex blue, right? From my mountain house, you can see where the Atlantic becomes the Caribbean. It goes from a Windex blue to sort of a turquoise green. And it is genuinely so sharp. It looks over-pixelated. It looks photoshopped. And when you have beauty that's sharp, that is that sharp, you also have teeth that are that sharp, because everything in life is a pendulum, right? When you have something that goes that far to an extreme, you have something that goes the other way. So we've had earthquakes, we've had hurricanes,
Yeah.
we've had COVID. We had you have swarms of termites that fly in the spring after a rain. And I mean swarms. They cover your entire window until you can't see out of it. It's like a plague, and you feel biblical. It's just like, oh my gosh. So being here has been an adventure in itself, and not always an easy one. I mean,
Yeah.
but a beautiful one.
So now you're on the other side of the adventure with your daughter.
Right. Now it's
now
me.
you've kind of transitioned to Cris in the mountain house.
I did. I am an empty nester in a really high nest.
And do you envision further transitions in life, or is this the place where you're going to be hanging out for a while?
Well, okay. So I don't plan to sell the mountain house. I'm grateful that I was able to create, and I'm still creating, a space where my children, my family, can come and be warm and take a break from, the cold Northeast, and feel like they have a space to come, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter is a surfer, and she does come down. She came down at, Thanksgiving for her birthday.
And you're a surfer as well. You're a surfer as well.
I am a person who surfs. I am not a good surfer, but I am a joyful surfer.
But you do get up on the board. Yes, you do get up
I
on the
do.
board.
And honestly, when you go out here in Puerto Rico on the West Coast, the sea turtles, they will come up and just bonk your legs while you're sitting on your board, and they'll surf with you in the waves.
Wow.
It is so magical. I don't have another word for it. It is so magical. I don't even need to catch a wave. The magic of what happens when you're out there, not just the wildlife, that's part of it, but also when you surf, the wave picks up the board, right? And you watch the surfer roll up. People say pop up. You don't really pop. You sort of roll up like a yoga cobra.
Mm-hmm.
And they roll up, and you can watch their face. It's my favorite place to be, is right in that wave where the surfer goes from paddling like wildly, hardly. They're paddling so hard, and they're so determined, and you can see it in their face, and they're turning and looking at the wave. And then you can see the moment when the wave picks them up, and they roll up, and their face just goes from this determined grimace to this amazing joy. It's incredible. And I don't know that I have that look on my face. I probably have oh no, or like, whoa.
Yeah, a little bit of
That's
panic mixed in. Yeah.
that's probably my look. But for sure, like I don't even need to catch a wave. I can just be out there and see that. And that's a
Yeah.
good day for me. So yeah,
So
I do surf.
I interrupted you on your plans perhaps for the future,
It's
but
okay. So I I think I would like to look for a place in the States again, not to sell my place here, but to look for a place in the States. Um, it is isolating up here on the mountain and easy to isolate, which is not always great. And I'm learning that. I think it might be better for me to be closer to my family. I have grandkids now.
oh yeah.
My stepchildren have little ones, and the children of my heart. My stepchildren are the children of my heart, not my body, but my heart. And I'm so grateful to be able to be part of their lives and the lives of their children.
Hmm.
And my youngest is, doing her thing. Um, I don't necessarily want to be in their back pocket, but I think it would be really nice to be within driving distance
Closer.
sometimes.
Yeah, closer.
Yeah.
Sure. And the
Um,
and
yeah,
then you have this amazing place and
I
you have
do.
a whole industry of voice actors and audiobook narrators that you absolutely can rent out the Mountain House because if
100%.
you keep that booth in there,
Right.
I'll be on the list of people saying, "Hey,
I was gonna say,
Chris, when
come
is it
on
available?"
down. Come on down.
You could rent that baby out and to
Absolutely.
because there's so many times I can tell you that we've talked about, you know, going somewhere and I'm like, I wonder if I could
Hmm.
find a place that had like a studio.
Hmm.
And if you put that out there on the internet, I guarantee you'll get some takers for
Absolutely. Come
renting
on
a
down.
week or two out at your place. But yeah, that was, I guess, the reason I asked the question because as a parent,
Yeah.
I know that as our children get older and begin to perhaps start having children and those types of life
Right.
events, those moments where as we get older, we start thinking, I kind of want to be near them. I want to be
Right.
part of what they're doing. And I think we all go through that as parents, we get to
Right.
that point in our lives where they're always going where we're going. And then all of a sudden we start to transition to, wait a minute, maybe we want to
Right.
go where they're going.
We raise them to be these independent, amazing people, and then they
Yes.
go off and be independent and
I
amazing, darn it.
know. Darn it. They do what we tell them to do. Why do they do that?
Ugh.
But,
So yeah. So I think without getting too woo-woo about it, right? I'm always listening for that still, quiet voice. I'm not always still and quiet enough to listen for it, but I try.
mm-hmm.
That voice that says, go this way or go that way. And I heard that with Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And then everything fell into place, which is what happens, I think, when you hear that still, quiet voice
Mm-hmm.
and things just start falling into place. If there's too much pushback on it, you go, is this what I should be doing? Um, so I'm sort of listening for that still quiet voice. And in the process, I'm continuing with the projects here at the Mountain House. And yeah, so I'm not sure what the future holds. Um,
But you've got
but
some nice options. You've got
I
some
I
really nice
do.
options, which is
And
nice.
I
And
can see a long way from up here.
that's
So
right. You have a very
yeah,
good view. Very
I
good
have a
view.
good view of the road forward from up here.
Yes.
So yeah,
I love that idea of listening to the quiet voice because, and sometimes it gets frustrating because you're listening and you're not hearing anything. And you're like, come on,
absolutely.
I know I've heard this before. Where are you, voice?
Right,
I need
exactly.
you to come back and tell me. And that teaches us patience as well, for sure.
100%, 100%. And that's definitely, honestly, I think that's part of voiceover too, and being in the booth on your own, so much, or even being directed. You're listening, or you're waiting for that feeling of like, I'm on the right, like this is right. And when you're narrating and you get chills, you're like, oh man, I nailed that one.
Mm,
Right? So you're
absolutely.
reading and you feel like you're in that story. Um, yeah, I mean, you're listening for that, or waiting for that feeling, listening for that voice that tells you you're on the right path. Yeah.
I love, maybe I know you've experienced this as a narrator, but I love when I'll start for the day and I'll start to do my narration. And usually it's kind of in the beginning. Usually
Hmm.
I'll be very thankful before I even start.
Absolutely.
But as I start and I realize I can take this moment to sort of go outside of myself and view myself. And I'm always amazed, and like you, I've been doing it for a long time, but I'm always amazed that this is what I get to do.
Hmm.
And I have that moment where, as I'm narrating, I'm like, this is what you're doing, Mike. This is your job. This is what you're getting paid
Right?
for. This
Yeah.
is amazing. And I have that moment of just such great appreciation. And
Hmm.
I had a post just recently on Instagram and TikTok and Instagram, and it was about ikigai. And I know you probably heard of ikigai. It's a Japanese term that is basically finding your purpose. And it's about, asking yourself things like, what do I love to do? Um,
Hmm.
what am I good at doing? Um, what what need am I fulfilling? Um,
Right.
can I get paid to do it? And when you find that
Right.
Venn diagram intersection of all those things, then that becomes kind of your ikigai, which is just another way of saying it's a little bit deeper than your purpose. But it's essentially, if you translated it, it would be kind of finding your purpose. And um,
I love that.
once I found it, it took me a long time to find it. And once I found it, I was interviewed on another podcast, and I said, I almost like I go down the street now, and I don't actually do this, but there's part of me that wants to like grab people and go, are you happy with what you're doing? Are you happy? Because if you're not, you need to keep looking.
Right.
I don't, you don't want to live your life in quiet desperation, and I think unfortunately a
Right.
lot of people do. And I'm not saying that what we do is easy and that there aren't hard days and there aren't struggles
There are
that we
hard
both
days.
go through. Yeah, I mean, this is
Right.
still an industry that's we talked about AI ad nauseum
Hmm.
and in so many social media forums. This is an industry that's evolving and changing, and there's no guarantees.
Absolutely.
There's no guarantees that we're going to continue to do what we do.
Hmm.
But when you do something that fulfills something inside of yourself, that's a deep need and a purpose that you feel you're filling, and you're able
Absolutely.
to make a living at it, it's really a pretty amazing experience. And I
It
know
really
you felt
is.
that.
I have 100%. And interestingly, when I start to feel like what am I doing here? Talking to myself in a padded room. And that can happen because you are alone in a padded room talking to yourself and day after day. And what am I doing? Inevitably, I will get an email or someone will message me on Facebook or I'll now because I have narrated as many books as I have, sometimes I run into people
Hmm.
um and I'll get an email from someone who says, I had eye surgery. I'm going blind. And your voice helped me in the hospital not to feel scared.
Mm.
That was a moment where I just,
Chills.
bawled my eyes out, where I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. And she said, there was something about listening to you that made me feel like it was going to be okay.
Oh gosh.
Um, right, right. I'm getting chills telling you this. I
Yeah.
mean, right? Um, another woman telling me that, and not even telling me, it was on a fan page for the author. And she was saying, we listened to the audiobook of this series. My husband is severely dyslexic and he's never read. And he struggled through school and he's never read. But I said to him, hey, there are audiobooks of this series that I'm reading. Would you like to listen to? And it was a new adult paranormal um, book, and they're well done. I mean, it's a series; they're fabulous, and the dialogue is snappy and clever and funny as all get out. And he said yes, and she said now he's further ahead than I am, and I have to keep saying to him, stop, stop, don't go further.
Right. Wait for me.
Right, and she said he just said, this whole world opened up to me that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
Um, and I was part of that. I mean, I'm not the author, but I was part of bringing that
Mm.
to life for them. Um, so yeah, it's
It's pretty cool.
inevitably whenever I start questioning it, I
Yeah.
get that cool moment of like, whoa, but this is cool. Um, yeah. And gratitude is a huge part of anything you do.
Oh,
So
no question. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Fear and gratitude cannot exist at the same time. So anytime I have
Ooh, I
fear.
love that.
I
I want
instantly,
to have that on a frame in my booth.
yes, it's true. I mean, you can't feel gratitude and fear at the same time. So anytime you feel fear, then you immediately start thinking about things that you're grateful for. And the more we think about things that we're grateful for, more things that we're grateful for will come to us. I firmly believe that.
I believe that as well.
My faith is important to me. I'm a Christian, and for me, I've had the opportunity to do so many Christian titles that I never sought out, and I know that they were brought to me. And
Right.
when I go back to that original point that I made at the beginning about using my voice to communicate, when I narrate those books, and I'm like, wait a minute, like how many people are going to be listening to me narrate this book that is focused on something that's important to me and hopefully will have an impact on somebody else's life. And like that, it doesn't really get much better than that for me, because
For sure.
it's a full circle moment, because I remember when I left, when I had to make that decision to sell the pharmacy, similar to you with Puerto Rico, it was that quiet voice. It was very clear to me that this was the time. And I talked to my wife about it. Obviously, I consulted with people that I felt would give me good advice, because that was a big decision. We have 4 children, and I'm like, I'm going to sell this business, and I'm going to leave this profession. And obviously talked to my mom and dad about it, because my dad obviously had the pharmacy before me, and they said, look, this is what you need to do. And there was there was a passage. I think it's Hebrews 11:1, and it said that confidence is things hoped for, and assurance of things not seen. And I remember thinking, that was the passage that
you gave
really,
me chills. Woof.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the passage that got me there. And I was like, we're going to do this. But I was so calm about it. It was a very hectic process, just like it was for you. The reality of the logistics were very complicated and stressful, but the decision was calm.
Right. That is exactly that. Exactly that. The decision is calm. Yep.
That moment that quiet voice says to you, like, this is the path. And
this way.
I think people need to spend as much time as they can trying to hear that quiet voice. And I know that can be stressful in and of itself, but hear the quiet voice.
It'll happen. Yep, absolutely.
Listen. So this has been an amazing conversation. I want to
Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
I know, it's been so much fun. And but I want to finish up by asking you, if you had to narrow it down to just one piece of advice for an aspiring voice actor or narrator, what do you think that would be?
Probably to bring your authentic self. They want to hear you. Yeah, bring your authentic self. Oh, my belly agrees. Bring your authentic self.
There you go. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And there's no question about it. We don't always, the voice, and we say things to ourselves that we would never say to anybody else, right? A voice in our head is always our harshest critic. And so I think people struggle with, well, I can't be me.
Right.
Me's not
they don't
want
to hear me. That's right. Exactly. No, bring your authentic self. They want to hear you.
Yeah, absolutely.
They want to hear you and how you color it, right? So take the black and white text and color it with your authentic colors.
Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that piece of advice. Well, Cris, thank you. Where can people find you?
Well, I'm on anywhere you can find audiobooks. If you hunt Cris Dukehart, you can find me there. You can also find me at www.chrisdukehart.com. That has links to pretty much anywhere you might want to find me.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And here, this was so marvelous. Thank you, Mike.
And make sure, everybody, it's CRIS.
It is CRIS.
Dukehart.
Yes, CRISDUKEHART.com.
Perfect. Cris, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey. And with my listeners, I know it's going to be helpful for them. And I wish you continued success on your amazing journey.
Wonderful. Thank you. And you, Mike. This was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me today on the Mike Lenz VO podcast. Head on over to MikeLenzVOpodcast.com for links and recaps of each show. Catch you next time on the Mike Lenz VO podcast.